blessed Maundy Thursday to you this day. Thank you so much for tuning in for this time of reflection. We encourage you to check out our Synod's service this evening at 7 o'clock, led by Bishop Gohl and many of our Synod's leaders. Again, thank you so much for checking out this time. As you can see, I'm hanging out with Henry, who is our grazing dog, so you'll hear him chomping on leaves in the background because that's what he does. But thank you so much for joining us this day for this time of reflection. We will also have a video coming out at noon on Good Friday, as well as 9:30 in the morning on Easter Sunday. So again, thank you so much for checking in at this time. For spending some time with us for this service on Maundy Thursday. Holy Gospel according to John, the 13th chapter. Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. If you will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The Gospel of the Lord. Let us pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. It's a strange day. It's a strange day for us to be gathering for these 3 holy days. Starting off here in Maundy Thursday, and I am on the patio of my old house, and at this point in time tomorrow, we'll have probably officially been moved in. So as the time we are watching this together, I will be moved into our new house, trying to set up the Wi-Fi and all of those things so that we are good to go in this new place, all the while knowing that I will not be, in fact, gathering with the congregation of faith, and Pastor Sarah and Pastor Dave will not be gathering with Salem in person during our services in our beloved sanctuaries. And it's a strange day, particularly because as a pastor who's now been preaching Maundy Thursday sermons and celebrating Holy Communion around Maundy Thursday for a few years now, and then having gone to church for so many years as a child and the son of a pastor, going to Maundy Thursday services, even if the sermon was absolutely dreadful, I knew we'd be gathering at the table where we would receive the incredible grace of God, where we would share in the Lord's Supper, and we would know that in our hands we were receiving the body of Christ, that in the wine or grape juice we were drinking the embodied Christ, and knowing that Christ would be present with us even in those 2 days to come and always as we gathered around God's table. So it's a weird day. It's a weird day knowing that following this sermon we won't be gathering around the table, that we won't be hearing those words for you as the bread is placed into our hands, as we feel the small cups or the chalice placed in our hands or against our lips. It's a weird day knowing that doesn't follow this sermon. And so it's important to rest in the gospel message that we just heard. And in fact, in John's gospel, we don't hear anything about the meal. We don't hear anything about what takes place in the Lord's Supper. Jesus doesn't hold a cup and raise it for the disciples. Jesus doesn't take bread and break it and give it out to the disciples. No, instead Jesus takes a towel and wraps it around himself. And Jesus kneels before each of the disciples and he washes their feet. Now culturally, as you may have heard many times in different sermons over the years, culturally, feet washing would have been more common back in those days. Feet washing would have been more common back in those days. Particularly in wealthier households where a servant would greet you at the door to wash your feet so that you were coming into this place of welcome, gathering around the table with your feet washed and ready to share in the meal together, having a servant come and the host sending the servant to do so. But here in this moment, Jesus takes that place of servanthood and kneels before his disciples and washes their feet. Culturally, it isn't something that we immediately think of. But in this moment that Jesus is sharing with the disciples, it's an incredibly intimate moment. The Master, the Lord, the Teacher, kneeling before them and washing their feet. It's an incredibly intimate moment that he is sharing with those that he loves, showing them true love and service in the moments right before chaos is going to just completely take over. It's a strange evening for those disciples. Their world is turned upside down in this moment. Their Master, their Lord, their Teacher kneeling before them and washing their feet, it's not something that they would ever expect, and it's almost a perfect illustration of what the few days ahead are going to be. A complete upheaval of everything that they think they know. Why I'm dwelling on this in my life is I'm thinking about the intimate moments that we are now experiencing in our lives. The intimate moments where we are trying to figure out who we are in this time of social distancing, in this time of COVID-19, and being thrust into intimate moments with family members, with spouses, with our pets who are constantly around us, grazing and barking and chewing on leaves. These are moments where we're kind of thrust into unexpected intimate moments. But we're also called, as Jesus tells us, to love and serve. But we can't exactly do them in the ways that we normally would. It has me thinking about a time when I was incredibly isolated, which is back when I was drinking. So for those of you who don't know, I've been in recovery for about 5.5 years. And the very end, right before I became sober, was the worst I had ever been drinking. And it got so bad 5.5 years ago that I actually was admitted into the hospital with pancreatitis. At the time, I was living with my parents. I was in my first semester of seminary, and I was battling alcoholism, I was battling depression, and my drinking was unfathomable how much I was drinking a day. So I was admitted to the hospital with pancreatitis because I was literally drinking myself to death. I was in the hospital for about 5 days, 4 nights, or actually 5 nights, 4 days. And why that time was so isolating was that I was confined to that bed. I was weak because I wasn't allowed to eat or drink anything. The only nourishment I was allowed to have was having an IV into my arm so that I could stay hydrated and get a little bit of nutrients. But my body was so damaged that I couldn't even eat or drink anything. I was also in such bad shape and had so many IVs in my hands and on medications that I wasn't even allowed to shower because I had so many things that I was attached to. And so during that time, I had a few visitors that were constants. And 2 of them in particular were my mom and my dad. They tried to be with me almost every single day in order to try to love and support me, even though they had no idea why I was drinking the way that I was. They were heartbroken that I was in so much pain, both physically, emotionally, mentally. And because of that, they never wanted to leave my side. On about the third and a half, maybe 4th day, I started getting really uncomfortable. For those of you who don't know, when you're drinking constantly, almost every single day, and then you stop drinking, you start going through withdrawal symptoms. And so for me, I was probably in a constant state of sweat. I was constantly glossy because my body was withdrawing and detoxing from all of the alcohol and from all of the substances that I had been consuming for the months and years previously. Because of that, my scalp was getting incredibly itchy. And I was in so much discomfort from the IVs that were falling from my arms, from my head, that was itching like crazy. And so one day my dad came to me and said, "Do you want me to wash your hair for you?" This was a moment that I never expected. Now, to clarify, my dad and I have a great relationship. He's a wonderful human being and is one of the kindest souls in the world. But to have him wash my hair was a part of our relationship that it was never a part of our relationship. But all of a sudden, he was there by my side and said, "Do you want me to wash your hair for you? I can go home, get your shampoo, and we can lean over the sink in your hospital bathroom, and I can wash your hair for you." So he went home, got the shampoo, came back, and he took me to the bathroom as I was pulling both of my IV stations along with me and unable to wash my own hair. My dad leaned me over the sink and washed my hair. He massaged my scalp. He made sure that he got all the nooks and crannies. And then he took a towel and he dried it. And he helped guide me back to my hospital bedroom. In this gospel lesson, Jesus says one needs only wash except for the feet. Like, all you need to wash is your feet and you'll be clean. In that moment, in that hospital bedroom, all I needed was my scalp to not be on fire from itching. But somehow in this moment where my dad washed my hair, there was so much more than just my scalp feeling better. After drinking so much and causing so much pain over the years, this act of my dad washing my hair over this bathroom sink was an act of love and service and forgiveness that changed my life. That was an act of love and service that truly showed me what love and forgiveness and service are. And so if you ask me, what are some of the most intimate experiences you've ever had in your life? If you asked me that question 5.5 years ago, I never would have even conceived of the idea of somebody washing my hair as being how I would answer that question. But today I can say that is maybe one of the most intimate and powerful experiences that I have ever had in my life. The act of my dad washing my hair over the sink, showing me such love and grace and forgiveness and service in a way that has just completely changed my life. And so that's where we are this Maundy Thursday, right? In a time and place where we don't experience having, we can't fathom this experience of having to figure out a new way of being community together. We can't fathom the idea of needing to love and serve in new ways, because we've found good ways to love and serve in the church. But now we're trying again, here in this time of social distancing, of COVID-19, to explore what it means to love and serve, what it means to be in intimate relationship with one another when we can't do it the way we always have. And we're asked this question: What does it mean to be in intimate relationships, to love and serve our neighbor during this time, when we can't be present, when we are encouraged and what is loving is to be distant? And so that's kind of where I need to end it. Because for each of us, that answer is going to be different. What it means to love one another, what it means to love our families, what it means to love our animals, our pets, what it means to love those that we cannot be physically present with, that is going to be different for each of us. And so I encourage you to lean into that question of love and service on this Maundy Thursday. What does it mean to love and serve our neighbor now? What does it mean to be the body of Christ, the incarnate Christ in this world, in a time of social distancing, in a time when we are not immediately together? Amen.